A ripple of hope. The fluorescent lights of the community center buzzed overhead, amplifying Eleanor's already jangled nerves. The linoleum floor squeaked under her sensible shoes as she approached the reception desk. "I'd like to sign up for AquaFit," she mumbled, avoiding eye contact with the perky teenager behind the counter. "AquaFit? Great choice," the teenager chirped, oblivious to Eleanor's apprehension. "Name and address?" Eleanor provided the information, her hand trembling slightly as she signed the waiver. She felt a pang of guilt. Walter would have chuckled, calling her a nervous Nellie. He always did have a way of making her laugh at herself. Now, laughter felt like a luxury she could barely afford. The first class loomed large in her mind. She'd bought a new swimsuit, a modest navy one-piece, but still felt exposed. The changing room was a cacophony of splashing and chatter. Eleanor found a quiet corner, quickly changing and wrapping a towel around herself. The pool area was bright and echoed with the happy cries of children in the shallow end. The AquaFit class was gathering on the far side, near the deeper water. She hesitated, watching the other participants. Most of them seemed younger, more toned. A wave of self-consciousness washed over her. What was she doing here? Maybe she should just turn around and go home. But then she remembered the doctor's words. "Exercise is crucial, Eleanor. It will help both your physical and mental health." And if she was honest with herself, she was desperately lonely. Taking a deep breath, she walked towards the group. Suddenly, a booming voice cut through the noise. "All right, water warriors! Welcome to AquaFit! Get ready to make a splash!" A young man with a dazzling smile stood at the edge of the pool, microphone in hand. He had dark, curly hair that bounced as he moved and eyes that sparkled with genuine enthusiasm. This was Jake Rodriguez, the instructor. He exuded an infectious energy that was impossible to ignore. "First-timers, don't be shy. Jump right in, literally." He gestured towards the shallow end. "The water's fine, I promise. And if you feel silly, well, we're all going to feel silly together." His words were surprisingly reassuring. Eleanor cautiously made her way into the water. It was cooler than she expected, but refreshing. She stood near the edge, feeling awkward and out of place. Jake hopped into the pool with a splash, sending a spray of water in every direction. "All right, everyone. Let's start with some simple arm circles to warm up those muscles." He began demonstrating the exercise, his movements fluid and graceful. Eleanor followed along, feeling clumsy and uncoordinated. The water provided a gentle resistance, making each movement more challenging than she anticipated. She watched Jake, trying to mimic his form. "That's it, Eleanor. Nice and easy. Feel the burn," Jake called out, his smile warm and encouraging. He knew her name? She was surprised and pleased. As the class progressed, Jake continued to offer individual encouragement, making each participant feel seen and valued. He cracked jokes, played upbeat music, and generally created a fun and supportive atmosphere. By the end of the class, Eleanor was exhausted but exhilarated. Her muscles ached, but her spirit felt lighter. She had actually enjoyed herself. As she climbed out of the pool, Jake approached her. "How did you like it, Eleanor? Not too bad for a first-timer, huh?" He winked. "It was challenging," she admitted, "but I think I liked it. That's the spirit. Keep coming, and you'll be a water warrior in no time." He grinned. "See you next class." As Eleanor walked back to the changing room, she felt a ripple of hope begin to spread through her. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something new. The pool's charisma. The water, now a comfortable 82 degrees, swirled around Eleanor as Jake demonstrated the next exercise. He moved with an effortless grace, a stark contrast to her own somewhat clumsy attempts. But she didn't feel self-conscious, not anymore. He had a way of making everyone feel like they belonged, his booming voice filled with genuine encouragement, not just empty platitudes. Eleanor noticed how he made eye contact with each person, offering a specific tip or a word of praise. He wasn't just teaching a class, he was connecting. All right, everyone, time for the noodle flutter kicks, Jake announced, grabbing a pool noodle. Hold it out in front of you, keep your core engaged, and let's flutter those legs like you're trying to outrun a hungry alligator. Eleanor chuckled, adjusting her grip on the noodle. He had a talent for the absurd, which she found surprisingly refreshing. She began kicking, the water churning around her. Come on, Eleanor, give it some welly, Jake called out, his eyes twinkling. Imagine you're kicking off those sensible shoes and dancing barefoot on a beach. Sensible shoes are very practical, Jake, Eleanor retorted, trying to keep a straight face while maintaining her flutter kicks. Practical, yes. But are they fun? He grinned, splashing a little water her way. I rest my case, she sputtered, wiping the water from her face. All right, you win. I'll try to inject a little more beach into my flutter kicks. He laughed, a warm, genuine sound that seemed to echo in the enclosed space. That's the spirit. Now, show me that beach, Eleanor. As she focused on her kicking, imagining warm sand between her toes, she felt a strange lightness. A flicker of joy, long dormant, sparked within her. It wasn't just the exercise, though she knew the endorphins were helping. It was Jake's energy, his infectious enthusiasm, his ability to make her feel seen, even in a room full of people. The class continued, a mix of cardio and strength training, all performed in the supportive embrace of the water. Jake kept the energy high, weaving in jokes and stories, always making sure to offer modifications for those who needed them. He made it seem easy, effortless, but Eleanor knew it took a special kind of person to create that kind of atmosphere. As the class wound down, Jake led them through a cool-down routine, slow stretches designed to ease their muscles. Great work, everyone, he boomed. Remember to hydrate, and I'll see you all next time. Eleanor, feeling pleasantly tired and invigorated, climbed out of the pool. Her skin tingled, not just from the chlorine, but from something else, something she couldn't quite name. As she gathered her things, she caught Jake's eye. He gave her a small, genuine smile. You did great today, Eleanor, he said, his voice softer now, without the instructor's bravado. I can see you're really getting into it. Thanks, Jake, she replied, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. I really enjoyed it. That's what it's all about, he said, his eyes sparkling. See you next class? Definitely, Eleanor said, a little too quickly, and then, feeling a blush rise to her cheeks, she turned and hurried towards the changing room, leaving the pool and its charismatic guardian behind. Beyond the water, the aroma of fried chicken, usually a magnetic force on Eleanor, stalled her just outside the takeout window. The fluorescent lights cast a sickly sheen on the rain-slicked pavement. Jake's advice, small steps, Eleanor. That's all, resonated in her thoughts. She conjured his encouraging grin, the laugh lines etched beside his eyes. Defying temptation, she continued past, venturing to the greengrocer she typically avoided, its produce section a verdant challenge. Selecting a pre-made salad with grilled chicken and a lemon vinaigrette, she felt a small victory. Not the indulgent comfort she craved, but somehow, better. Later that evening, after hours spent marking essays, the couch beckoned with its familiar allure, promising the numbing escape of reality TV. Again, Jake's voice echoed in her head. Even a brief walk can clear your head. Reluctantly, she laced up her trainers. The twilight air, cool and crisp, carried the comforting sense of decaying leaves and distant hearth fires. Her initial pace was slow, her muscles protesting each movement. As she ambled, she mused about Jake, his effortless vitality, his knack for making everyone feel valued. She wondered about his social life, if he spent his evenings embracing the city's quiet solitude. A strange flutter stirred within her. Increasing her speed, her breath came in shallow bursts. By the time she returned, her face glowed with newfound color, and a surprising energy coursed through her. The next afternoon, Eleanor sat ensconced in the library, surrounded by tomes. Supposedly immersed in Victorian literature, her thoughts drifted. She doodled idly in her notepad, capturing the strong line of Jake's jaw, the way his hair tumbled forward during a particularly difficult water exercise demonstration. A sharp cough shattered her reverie. Mrs. Henderson, the notoriously severe guardian of the Dewey Decimal System, loomed over her, spectacles perched on her nose. Eleanor flushed crimson, snapping her notebook shut. "Just a brief respite," she stammered. Mrs. Henderson's eyebrow arched skeptically. "Very well, dear. But please confine your artistic expression to suitable materials." Eleanor nodded, feeling chastised. She attempted to refocus on her research, but Jake's image persisted. She pictured him laughing, his voice a rich baritone. She imagined him. She shook her head, dismissing the thought. Preposterous. He was likely half her age, and moreover, her instructor. It was merely appreciation, she reasoned. Appreciation for his support, for reawakening a part of herself she'd long given up on. But deep inside, she recognized it was deeper than that. It was the intensity of his gaze, the way he seemed to perceive something within her that had been dormant for years. It was the faint spark of possibility that, perhaps, she wasn't invisible after all. A helping hand. The water swirled around Eleanor's chest as Jake's voice cut through the splashing. "All right, team, hamstring curls are next. Remember, core tight, heels high." Eleanor gave it her all. She focused intently, contracting her right hamstring as she lifted, but her supporting leg threatened to give way. A desperate scramble for equilibrium followed, a flush prickling her skin. The wobble was obvious, judged by the snickers that bubbled to the surface. Mortification burned in Eleanor's cheeks. Clumsy. Uncoordinated. She longed to dissolve into the depths. She pasted on a smile, feigning composure, but Jake's gaze was perceptive. A clap of his hands, a booming, "Feel that burn, people! Almost there!" He moved among them, correcting postures, spotting the struggling. Reaching Eleanor, he offered only a subtle nod, a private acknowledgement of her difficulty. As the class dissolved into post-set chatter, Jake steered toward her, his usual grin softened with genuine regard. "You all right, Eleanor? Looked a bit wobbly on those curls." "Just not my forte," she muttered, eyes fixed on the churning water. "Balance felt off today." He didn't press, allowing her some grace. "Tell you what," he murmured, lowering his voice. "Stick around for a sec after? I've got a little trick that might boost your stability." No hint of pity colored his offer. A wave of relief washed over her. "Really? Would you?" "Absolutely. That's what I'm here for, right?" His smile broadened, creases forming at the corners of his eyes, a sight that sent a strange flutter through her. As the others streamed out, Eleanor loitered by the edge, twisting her swimsuit strap. Jake waved goodbye to the lifeguard, then bounded out, snagging a kickboard. "Right," he said, positioning himself beside her. "The secret is the glutes. Most try to rely on quads, which just throws you off." He demonstrated, balancing on one leg with the kickboard held lengthwise, a picture of contained power as he gently squeezed his gluteus muscles. "Give it a shot," he encouraged, offering the board. Eleanor inhaled deeply and copied his stance. The difference was immediate. Engaging those muscles provided a firmer foundation. Yet she still swayed. "Okay, good. Now, imagine rooting yourself to the bottom. Push down with that standing leg," Jake coached. Eleanor concentrated, squeezing, pushing, striving for equilibrium. Improvement, though incremental, was undeniable. "See?" Jake's voice vibrated with authentic encouragement. "You're nailing it. It's all about finding that center. And don't be shy about using your arms, think graceful flamingo." Laughter bubbled up, the tension finally leaching from her shoulders. "A graceful flamingo? I like that." They practiced for another 10 minutes, Jake offering precise tweaks and bolstering words. No rushing, no judgment, just genuine investment. And standing there in the hushed expanse of the empty pool, she understood it wasn't solely about hamstring curls anymore. It was something deeper. It was about him seeing her vulnerabilities and helping her discover her own equilibrium, both within the water and beyond. Stories beneath the surface. The chlorine smell clung to Eleanor even after a shower, a phantom limb of her newfound routine. Jake had suggested coffee after class, a casual invitation that sent a surprising flutter through her chest. She'd readily agreed, picturing the quiet cafe down the street. It turned out to be anything but quiet. Espresso yourself, blared upbeat pop music, and the aroma of roasting beans mixed with the sugary scent of pastries. Jake, unfazed, navigated the crowd with practiced ease, securing a small table by the window. He returned with 2 steaming mugs, handing one to Eleanor. My treat. Black, like you asked? Thank you, she said, taking a sip. The coffee was strong, a welcome jolt. She watched Jake as he added sugar to his own, his brow furrowed in concentration. There was a boyish charm about him that she found disarming. So, he said, leaning back in his chair. Librarian, huh? I always pictured librarians as stern and shushing. Eleanor laughed. That's the stereotype. I try to be more approachable. I run the local history section. It's fascinating. All the stories that are hidden in old documents and photographs. Like stories beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Jake mused, swirling the sugar in his coffee. Eleanor nodded, a wistful expression crossing her face. Exactly. I used to think I'd write my own stories, travel the world, but life took a different turn. She hesitated, then added, My husband, Robert, passed away 5 years ago. We had a good life, a quiet life. Jake's easy smile softened. I'm sorry to hear that, Eleanor. 5 years, that's a long time to grieve. Some days it feels like yesterday, she admitted, tracing the rim of her mug. He encouraged my dreams, even when I didn't. After, well, I just sort of stopped dreaming. AquaFit is about restarting dreams, right? Jake winked. Or at least, not letting the water get stagnant. Eleanor smiled, grateful for his light-heartedness. And what about you, Jake? What's your story? Mine's a little less historical, he said, grinning. Big, loud family. 4 siblings, all annoyingly athletic. Sunday dinners are a competitive sport. I practically grew up in the pool. Fitness isn't just a job for me, it's a passion. I love seeing people surprise themselves, discover what their bodies are capable of. He tapped his fingers on the table, a nervous habit she was starting to recognize. I want to open my own gym someday, maybe specialize in adaptive fitness. Make it accessible for everyone, regardless of age or ability. His enthusiasm was infectious. Eleanor found herself genuinely interested, captivated by his energy and drive. That's a wonderful goal, Jake. I hope you achieve it. Thanks, he said, his eyes sparkling. Maybe you can come to the grand opening. Honorary member, free lifetime pass. Eleanor chuckled. I'll hold you to that. The cafe's music seemed a little less jarring now, the aroma of coffee a little more comforting. The stories beneath the surface, she realized, weren't just in old books and photographs. They were in the people around her, waiting to be shared. Whispers and doubts. The chlorine smell seemed sharper than usual, stinging Eleanor's nostrils as she dripped her way towards the locker room after class. Jake had been especially attentive today, his hand lingering a fraction too long on her arm as he corrected her butterfly stroke, his smile a little brighter when their eyes met across the turquoise water. She'd basked in it, the warmth radiating through her like the sun after a long winter. Now that warmth felt like a fever. Did you see the way he was looking at her? Brenda's voice, usually a booming laugh during water aerobics, was a hushed, acidic whisper. Eleanor froze, halfway to the lockers. She recognized Brenda, and the other voice, sharp and clipped, belonged to Carol, who always wore an excessive amount of waterproof mascara. Like she was a teenager again, Carol hissed. Honestly, the way she's been acting. It's embarrassing. Eleanor's stomach clenched. She should move, pretend she hadn't heard, but her feet felt rooted to the damp tile. He's just being nice, Brenda countered, though her tone suggested she didn't believe it. It's his job. Nice? Please. He's barely 30. She could be his mother. Carol's words were like tiny barbs, sinking deep. And the way she flirts. Goodness. It's just sad. Sad? The word echoed in Eleanor's head. She pictured herself, reflected in the locker room mirror, the lines around her eyes, the slight sag of her jawline, the way her swimsuit clung a little too tightly in certain places. Was she making a fool of herself? She finally forced herself to move, fumbling with the lock on her locker. She avoided looking at them, her cheeks burning with shame. As she pulled out her towel, she heard Brenda say, "I heard her husband passed away recently. Maybe she's just lonely." The pity in Brenda's voice was almost worse than the judgment. Eleanor hurried into a shower stall, the lukewarm water doing little to cool her flushed skin. Jake was young. He was vibrant and full of life, everything she wasn't. Maybe she was misinterpreting his kindness, projecting her own desires onto his friendly demeanor. Was she so desperate for connection that she was imagining something that wasn't there? The image of Jake's smiling face swam before her, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed, the genuine enthusiasm he had for helping her improve her technique. But now, a seed of doubt had been planted, a tiny weed threatening to choke the fragile bloom of her feelings. Was he just being nice? Was she just a lonely widow, grasping at a connection that could never be? She scrubbed her skin raw with the loofah, trying to wash away the shame, the embarrassment, the gnawing uncertainty. By the time she emerged from the shower, her hands were trembling. She dressed quickly, avoiding her reflection, and slipped out of the locker room, her usual post-swim energy completely drained. The chlorine no longer smelled sharp, just stale and suffocating. As she reached the parking lot, she wondered if she could face another AquaFit class, another dose of Jake's sunshine mixed with the bitter poison of whispered doubts. Pulling away. The text message felt like a betrayal even as she typed it. "Jake, something came up. Rain check on coffee?" Eleanor stared at the screen, the words shimmering with a neon gilt. She didn't wait for a reply, switching her phone to silent and tossing it onto the floral armchair, a landing so violent a cushion shifted onto the floor. Something had come up. A wall. A fortified barrier built from years of self-preservation, topped with barbed wire of anxiety. Jake was too bright. Too young. Too interested. And Eleanor, despite the giddy thrill his attention sparked, was too old, too damaged, too set in her ways to risk it all for a shot at something that probably wouldn't last. The next morning, AquaFit was a trial. She positioned herself at the back of the pool, near the shallow end, pretending an intense interest in perfecting her flutter kicks. Jake's booming voice, usually a source of motivation, now felt like an accusation. "All right, everyone, let's feel the burn." "Eleanor, great form back there." She flinched, refusing to meet his eyes. Instead, she focused on the chlorine stinging her nostrils, the rhythmic splashing of the water, the way Mrs. Henderson's floral swim cap kept threatening to engulf her entire face. Each enthusiastic word from Jake felt like a hammer blow against her carefully constructed defenses. He bounced from one side to the other, encouraging, adjusting, praising. She kept her gaze resolutely fixed on the faded blue tiles at the bottom of the pool, willing herself to disappear. After class, she practically sprinted to the locker room, fumbling with her towel and bag. She heard Jake call her name, his voice laced with genuine concern. "Eleanor, everything okay?" "Fine. Just late for something," she mumbled, not turning around. The lie tasted like ash in her mouth. She hurried into a stall, changed with frantic haste, and all but fled the building. The following Monday, Eleanor didn't even bother packing her swimsuit. She stayed home, drawn curtains casting her living room in a perpetual twilight. She turned on the television, flipping through channels with a restless energy, unable to focus on any one thing. The silence of the house was deafening, punctuated only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway, each tick a relentless reminder of the passing time, of opportunities missed. She found herself staring out the window, watching the leaves swirl in the autumn wind. The vibrant colors, once a source of joy, now seemed to mock her isolation. She picked up her phone, her thumb hovering over Jake's name. She imagined his smile, the crinkle around his eyes when he laughed, the way he always seemed to see right through her. Shame washed over her, hot and stinging. She couldn't do it. She just couldn't. She tossed the phone back onto the armchair, the floral pattern blurring into a kaleidoscope of regret. The wall was higher now, thicker, more impenetrable than ever. And on the other side she knew Jake was waiting. But Eleanor was done. For now. A heart-to-heart. The scent of lavender hit him as soon as Eleanor opened the door, a stark contrast to the chlorine he was used to. Her face, usually bright and welcoming, was clouded with a worry that dug a pit in his stomach. "Jake," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "What are you doing here?" He held up the small bouquet of lilies he'd impulsively grabbed from the corner store. "I wanted to talk. You've been avoiding me all week." The lilies felt suddenly inadequate, childish. She sighed, stepping back to let him in. Her living room was a cozy haven, filled with books and framed photographs. But the warmth felt muted today, overshadowed by the tension radiating from her. "It's nothing," she said, perching on the edge of a floral armchair. She wouldn't meet his eyes. "Eleanor, come on. I'm not blind. Something's wrong." He knelt in front of her, taking her hands in his. They felt cool, almost clammy. "Talk to me." She finally looked up, her eyes glistening. It's us, Jake. People have been talking." He frowned. "Talking? About what?" "About the age difference. About how inappropriate it is." Her voice cracked. "They think I don't know, taking advantage of you, or something." He stood up abruptly, pacing the small room. "That's ridiculous. Who cares what they think?" He stopped, turning back to her. "Do you think I'm being taken advantage of?" She shook her head vehemently. "Of course not. But it makes you think, doesn't it? About what everyone sees. About whether it's right." He sat down beside her, taking her hand again. This time, she didn't pull away. "Eleanor, look at me. I don't care about the age difference. I like you. A lot. I like your laugh. I like the way you challenge me. I like how you look in the water. Age is just a number. What matters is how we feel." He paused, searching her face. He saw a flicker of hope, buried beneath layers of doubt and worry. "I know it's scary," he continued, his voice softer now. "Putting yourself out there, especially after everything you've been through. But don't let other people's opinions dictate your happiness. Don't let their small-mindedness steal something that could be amazing." He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs gently stroking her cheeks. "Trust your heart, Eleanor. Trust what you feel. Because I know what I feel. And it's real." He leaned in, his lips hovering just above hers. "Can you do that? Can you trust yourself?" Her eyes fluttered shut, and she nodded almost imperceptibly. He closed the distance between them, his kiss gentle, tentative. A question asked without words? She kissed him back, and in that moment, the lavender scent in the room seemed to bloom, filling the space with a fragile, hopeful fragrance. Diving back in, Eleanor adjusted the straps of her brand-new teal one-piece. The familiar tang of chlorine greeted her at the community center pool, a scent usually linked to creaky joints and post-workout aches. Today, however, anticipation thrummed beneath the surface. It was about Jake. He was by the shallow end, demonstrating a modified jumping jack to a clutch of newcomers. His characteristic grin, the one that etched fine lines beside his eyes and set butterflies loose in her stomach, was in full force. He caught her eye, a fleeting wink, a private signal that sent a shiver of excitement through her. The water's resistance, during the class, transformed from a burden into an invigorating challenge. His encouragement felt tailored, a shared secret. Afterwards, Jake waited near the lockers. "Ready for that date?" he asked, casually propped against the wall, a playful curve to his lips. The farmer's market pulsed with energy. The heady perfume of sun-ripened peaches mingled with the comforting aroma of fresh bread. Eleanor, ordinarily reserved, found laughter bubbling up effortlessly as she shared anecdotes, vulnerabilities, and aspirations. Jake listened with focused attention, his gaze unwavering. He steered her toward the ripest tomatoes, introduced her to a local beekeeper, and presented her with a sunflower, its brilliant petals echoing her blossoming joy. "I haven't felt this vibrant in ages," she admitted as they shared a bag of still warm, cinnamon-sprinkled almonds on a nearby bench. "That's what living is all about, Eleanor," Jake murmured, his voice gentle. "Finding those sparks, no matter where you are on life's journey." He reached for her hand, his touch warm, reassuring, yet surprisingly stimulating. Later, they gravitated back to the now deserted community center pool, the fading sun painting long shadows across the still water. Jake perched on the edge, his legs dangling. Eleanor joined him, inhaling the cool evening air. "Remember me saying I felt invisible?" she asked, her voice hushed. He turned, his expression earnest. "You could never be invisible, Eleanor. Especially not to me." He slipped into the pool, beckoning her in with a playful splash. Tentatively, she followed. The water embraced her, a comforting caress. They floated in companionable silence, the gentle slosh of the water against the sides the only sound. He found her hand, his fingers interlacing with hers. From the doorway, Mrs. Henderson, the community center director, observed them. Initially, she'd frowned upon their age difference, but witnessing their connection, illuminated by the soft twilight, she couldn't deny its authenticity. A subtle smile graced her face. Perhaps, she mused, it was time to reconsider her own rigid assumptions about life and matters of the heart. Eleanor studied Jake, truly seeing him. The laughter lines etched around his eyes. The quiet strength in his hands. The palpable kindness he exuded. He was more than just a young fitness instructor. He was something deeper. And perhaps, just perhaps, she was more than just an elderly widow. The still water reflected the constellation of stars above, mirroring the burgeoning light in her own eyes. She leaned in, and he responded in kind. Their kiss was gentle, hesitant, yet pregnant with possibility. It was a rebellion against expectations, a celebration of vitality, and a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Eleanor felt complete, absolute joy.